Hello, welcome to this lecture video. So today we will talk about organizing and presenting the data. So this is the outline. So this is already presented to you in other videos. And our focus for this video is to organize data and represent data using graphs and chart. And also to give interpretation to the organized data. Okay, so assuming that we gathered information to sample respondents and we make use of a demographic profile questionnaire wherein we ask the name of the student, though usually name is actually optional. We also ask the age of the student, sex of the student, and also relationship status. And another is let's say we also ask for socio-economic status by letting them check whether they consider that they are in a poor family, average, or rich. So for instance, this is a questionnaire that we used in gathering our data. So the questionnaire is all about demographic profile of the individual or the students. Or we can actually also add here year level. So let's have a year level, age, relationship status, sex, socioeconomic status. So for example, respondent number one responded rather that she is 18 years old. She is female and she is in a relationship. And the year level, for instance, is first year. So, socioeconomic status. So, the respondent check average. So, this is the respond of one of the respondent. And in order for her or for the researcher now to process this data, so assuming that he gathered the data for 30 respondents, so how will the researcher now process the data for him or for her to come up with organized data and for her to present it in chart or graphical form? So in doing so, we need, of course, Microsoft Excel. So to encode the data as presented here, so the first thing that the researcher needs to do is to come up now with a data set. And for the data set, the researcher needs to place now. So if you think name is optional and it is not necessary for the data, so you can actually start with age, sex, socioeconomic status, and the other one, so year level, relationship status. Okay, so we have here age, sex, socioeconomic status, year level, and relationship status. So let us also consider one more column here that will correspond to the number of respondents. So we have, for instance, for each of the respondent that you're going to encode, you need to place a number in such a way that in case that you committed mistake later, it is easy for you to go back to your data. So let us place number for this respondent. So respondent number 1. So let us go back. So let's make this respondent number 1. So let's number it as number 1. So to encode now, what's the first one? Age. So 18 years old. It is numeric, so it is okay to encode it as is. For sex, instead of writing it as letter, what we are going to do is to recode this or to give this code, like we will encode this as one male and two female. The same with our socioeconomic status. We are going to set a code wherein if it is poor, we will write 1. For average, we will write 2. And for rich, we are going to write 3. While for relationship status, if it is again indicated there that the option is in a relationship or in a relationship or not in a relationship, so we can actually use 0 for not and 1 for in relationship. So let's go back to our data set. So we are going to encode our data, and to do that, so again, socioeconomic status, the sex is female. So we will encode 2. And what's next? We are going to encode the socioeconomic status, the respondent check average. So we are going to check, or rather to write 2. Year level, first year. So we can set it to 1 first year, 2 second year, 3 third year, and 4 fourth year. So this is 1. And for RS, or relationship status, so it is in a relationship, and we set a code that it is 1 for in a relationship, so we are going to encode 1. So this is how we are going to encode our data set. So we have actually here number 1, respondent number 1 age 18, sex 2, which means that just female. Socioeconomic status is 2, year level is 1, and relation status is in a relationship. Okay, so assuming that we are done encoding the data, so assuming that this is now the data set, so our option here is 0101 only. Of course, what you need to do is to come up with the actual data based from your based from the gathered data. However, in this data, what I am doing is just to come up with our dummy data, which will be used for us to encode it and to process it. Okay, so assuming that this is now our data, so we actually have two, how many respondents? We have 30 respondents. So of course, when we are encoding data, what we are doing is to make sure or to be careful that we are encoding the correct data. So of course, it does not mean that if it is 18 years old, it is first year, because of course we know that um, some of the students are second courser, or they stop for a while. So we have actually varied ages here. And for the respondent number, of course, this is from 1 to 30. Make sure that there's no duplication of number assigned. Okay, so this is now our data set. Our objective, aside from now encoding our data, is for us to organize our data. So this is now the organized data. It's already encoded in the Microsoft Excel. So next thing is that, how will we come up with our frequency percent frequency count and percent, because in organizing our data, what we can do is to present it through tabular form by presenting the frequency and percent. And another thing is to present it using graphical form or chart. So let us emphasize that. So let me use another Microsoft, let me use another Paint. So again, it can be presented using tabular, and it can also be presented using graphical. So for tabular, we can present our data using frequency count and percent table. For graphical, we actually need to assess whether our data is nominal, ordinal, because if our data is nominal, ordinal, we can present our data using pie chart, line chart, and bar chart. While if our data is interval or ratio, so we are going to present it using histogram and polygon. However, if we have very few numbers, though it is like, for instance, ratio, but it involves only few numbers, it can be also presented as a pie chart. Because, of course, if we have several data, like for example, 18 years old to, let's say, 70 years old, and we're going to create pie chart for that, it will look like color wheel. So if it's very few only, like it's limited into 4, then it's also just fine to present it using pie chart. So again, if our data is it will be presented now, we are going to come up with frequency count and percent. And for graphical, it depends now on the nature of the data, whether it is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Okay, let's go back to our data. So how will we present this using frequency count and percent? So what we need to do is to check first if we have the data analysis in the data. And what if, just in case your Microsoft Excel does not contain this? So what you need to do is to click File, and then File, Options, File, Options, Add-ins, and make sure that you have here the Analysis Toolpack. Manage Excel Add-ins, click Go. So make sure that Analysis Toolpack is checked, then click OK. And that's it. So if you will go to the data, you can find this option. This is very important. So we are going to use the data analysis. So what we will do is, first, let us consider the frequency count and percent of sex. So how will we process that data? So what we need to do is to click, or rather to highlight this, and then click data analysis and locate histogram. This is histogram, and click OK. So here, what you need to do is to come up with input range. So this is the input range, the value that we selected. But we also have here the bin range. The bin range corresponds now to the numbers. So here, we need to encode 1 and 2. So let's do that. Let's encode first 1 and 2. So let's do it again. Data analysis, histogram. Click OK. So select our values for sex. Oh, we actually have just 29 number of respondents. And for the bin range, you need to select our values 1 and 2. So there is no